Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another episode of Liberal White Dudes. I am Andrew.
I'm AJ.
And we are Liberal White Dudes. Tonight's episode is called Recruitment, where we talk a little bit about the recruiting tools online that people are using to turn people like us into people like you saw on the 6th. But first, let's chat a little about the news that happened between the last time we were here and today. One big news story that recently popped up was Margarine Green, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Green Margarine,
Yeah.
whatever.
Whatever.
Crazy congresswoman from Florida.
Yep.
Apparently, big fan of the idea of executing Democrats. Said that
Wow.
in public, like on shows or live, or there's documented proof of her talking about that. So on top of
Concerning.
everything else, right? On
Yeah.
top of every reason she was terrible before today, there's that as well.
Yeah.
Can you imagine going
She's
to work?
awful.
I mean, she has coworkers that she said this about. They
I
go
don't-
into the same building and are supposed to work together, unity.
This is
I
one of those
guess.
instances where I think to myself, if I was an employee at Walmart and I made statements like this, I wouldn't have a job at Walmart anymore. But apparently she can still hold office. Is that
Yeah, I
the
don't get
case?
it.
I mean,
It's like
I don't know.
we need a couple of the Karens in Congress to talk to the manager. Somebody do something.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. There was also a bit of news from the Justice Department where they said that basically stuff's going to start dropping this week, apparently, as soon as this week. Bigger
Yeah.
things, bigger arrests, bigger,
Yeah. Who knows?
So, who knows?
Maybe
I mean,
Margarine Green will end up in
Yeah.
cuffs where she belongs. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, at the very least, out of Congress.
Yeah.
Like,
At the very least, out of your office. Yeah.
yeah,
And
her and
yeah.
Gogurt and
Expelled.
couple
Holly
other
and Cruz.
seditionists. Yeah. Just shouldn't be making laws for the country that they don't want to be a part of.
Right. Agreed. Yeah, they are working for a country they clearly don't want to be a part of.
Yeah. So, off you go.
Agreed.
Joe Biden signed an executive order to stop using private prisons for the
I saw that.
Yeah.
federal prisoners. Good.
Yeah.
Let's-
The privatization of
Yeah.
prisons is already kind of a horrific notion. Like, profit for prison is already a horrific notion in my mind. So, yeah.
Profit
Like-
motive. I mean, you've got the government who doesn't have a real bottom line, so they spend money like crazy on whatever it is just to show that they spent the money so that they can get that same budget
Yeah.
next year, right? And they can show their constituents that they're doing stuff. So it's already terrible.
They're
right?
doing their job. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you've got the prisons who now have a for-profit motive to keep people in jail and put more people in jail, and I mean that whole system is messed up,
Yeah.
built around incarcerating as many citizens as possible for as long as you can possibly incarcerate them.
Yeah. And I might add, particularly citizens of color are targeted for our prison system. So, it's, I mean, kind of goes without saying, but it's something that's important to note as a facet to it.
Yeah.
Not only is the privatization of prisons kind of a horrific notion, like I mentioned, but the idea that it's also constructed with racism built right into the
Yeah, it's
construct of that system.
disproportionately
So,
racist.
Yeah.
The whole system is. So, yeah. So that was a good thing. I mean, I don't know how fast that boat turns, but
Right.
cut off
Yeah, we
federal
hope
funding.
quickly.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me now, or am I still kind of quiet?
No, you're
Oh,
super
yes.
loud.
You're
Excellent.
No, you're
how am I
good.
now? How am I
There
now?
it is.
You're
There's
good.
there's
You're
the
perfect.
that porridge is just right.
That's the sweet spot.
The Jared and the Three Bears or whatever.
Right.
Another piece of news: they finally put together a resolution for $15 an hour minimum wage. We talked a bit about that in our minimum wage episode. To be
Yeah.
$15 an hour by 2025.
Super
Oh.
helpful. Super helpful move. Yeah. Seeing as how $15 an hour is already not enough for us in 2021,
Correct.
wasn't enough in 2019,
It was
wasn't enough
not.
in 2018.
It sure wasn't.
So wait until 2025 seems appropriate.
Yeah.
I'm sure
it's a
that
slow
checks out.
ramp up of a dollar or two a year
Yeah.
until it hits $15 an hour in 2025 in an economy that we can't predict. But
Yeah. So
has not at all
Why?
kept up with inflation or productivity.
Why does anyone feel like this is a good idea? I mean, I guess we're doing something, which is nice, but why is this what we're doing?
Yeah,
If we're
I
I'm
gonna
mean,
do
afraid
it's
I
that,
don't.
been. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I
we're
was just
doing
gonna
it
say, I'm
properly.
afraid I don't know the particulars enough about it to know what the real rationale behind not being able to institute it is. I've assumed they have their plenty of reasons, but the bottom line is, like I said, $15 an hour already isn't enough. So it's
Yeah.
like that's great, you want to do that, but the idea that we have to ramp up that over the next 4 years or so, and it's already not enough presently. Again, with that in mind, it's like, well, okay, in 2025, $15 an hour is going to feel a lot like $8 an hour, like how
Yeah,
it feels right
yeah,
now.
you may
So
barely
we don't
keep
know.
up with inflation.
Yeah.
Some sort of cost of living adjustment. If it were already where it needed to be to have kept up with that over the
Yeah.
last 12 years,
like
it's
if $8 now was right, which it isn't, but if it was,
yeah,
we'd barely be keeping up with how much it should be in that pay.
right,
So
Right.
we're behind.
Yeah.
We're just behind
We're
by a
so
lot.
behind already.
yeah. So this, I guess, they see this maybe as some sort of compromise because they're moving it at all. And a lot of people warned about this being, and of course we felt this way about this
Yeah.
being possibly the hallmark of a Biden presidency is that it's just not good.
So it's like, well, I
Yes.
mean,
It's somewhere just south
Yeah.
of good, right?
Right,
It's
we
not the
see-
worst it
yeah.
can be because it's not nothing. Nothing
yeah,
would be
or
the
working
worst
the
it could
opposite
be.
direction. It's not like he's taking away the minimum
Right.
wage.
It's
So
not
that's
like,
nice.
yeah, he's
as well.
lowering it or taking it away. That would be objectively
Right.
worse.
Well, we've said this on the show before. I mean, a lot of people would probably, again, leading up to the election, obviously we were Biden supporters, but I think all of us agree he was not our first choice for the
Yeah.
Democratic nomination.
Yeah.
So
Not top three.
This show, not even top three. This show will critique the hell out of that guy's presidency. So it's like, yeah, obviously we're doing this is better, but
Yeah, but
by
it's
no
still not
means is
great.
this good.
Or
Yeah,
good.
not good enough. Not
Yeah,
even
I mean,
close.
it's it's somewhere south of good. Yeah, and the other
Yeah.
thing with that is, I say, Biden wasn't in my top three of people I would want to be president. As far as who I thought should run in order for us to win, that list is
Yeah.
different.
Yeah,
And
it's
Biden's on that list. He's probably not even on the list where
Yeah.
I'm like, who would I want to be president? It's unfortunate those
Yeah.
two lists aren't the same. But
That they don't coincide very well.
But
Yeah.
and Americans are gonna American when they go to the voting booth. I mean, that we saw them do that. This was close. It shouldn't have been. Anyway, we spent a lot of time on that already.
We have. Yeah. But it's true.
Yeah, another
Yeah.
little
Cannot overstate it.
bit of news, and start with a disclaimer that none of us are financial advisors, and we are not giving financial advice right now. But
Not at all.
they're running a short squeeze on GameStop, and so for those that don't follow financial markets, basically a lot of very large firms had put down options, which means they think that the GameStop price per share will go down, and it makes sense. It's a retailer in malls. It is doing terribly. The financials
Yeah,
say it's doing
poorly right
terribly.
now.
Well, and
There's-
what they produce is, or what they sell is also, it's all digital now.
Yeah,
So
it's
they're
a
literally
dying breed.
it's a brick and mortar store for a plastic disc.
Yeah, we will
that
talk
you
about.
purchase.
Yeah, we'll talk about GameStop the way that we talk about Blockbuster Video, or Hollywood
Exactly.
Video, or any
Yeah.
of the other things that I'm sad. that
Any
we don't
video,
have anymore.
really.
Did I mention Soup Plantation yet this episode?
Not this one, but it's been brought up on this program before.
Once an episode, we need to mention Soup Plantation in
Yeah.
some capacity.
So Reddit, basically a bunch of Redditors got together and decided to just buy a bunch of GameStop, jack it up to cost all the people who had shorts on it a ton of money. And then they have to basically cover their short. They have to buy the GameStop at whatever price it's now currently running. So it is hockey sticked. It has cost certain hedge funds like billions of dollars. A
Wow.
bunch of guys on Reddit.
Amazing.
Yeah.
The stock market still confuses me in that way. I think that like if a bunch of guys on Reddit can do that, it makes me wonder.
Well, here's the thing.
Yeah.
There's laws against kind of what they're doing. A pump and dump scheme or that kind of thing, right? So there may be some, follow-up news about
Yeah.
the SEC
Yeah, the
asking,
legal returns.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Going after some of these folks, but it does show sort of some inherent problems with our current
Yeah,
financial
sure.
structure, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. A bunch of guys on Reddit can change billions of dollars worth of
Yeah, through
Seems not
their
good.
phone, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boop, 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 boop.
It's like
Just
Watch
cost the
Dogs.
economy billions.
Yeah.
You
Got
know?
him.
Lol.
Yeah. Lol.
So,
LOL.
yeah, that's something to read about if you haven't already. Yeah, and even in after hours today, it was still climbing at an almost exponential rate. The cost of GameStop, a dying business. I mean, nobody
Yeah, it's
disagrees
just
with the
skyrocketing.
fundamentals. Nobody disagrees with
Right.
it being, terrible. And again, I'm not a financial advisor, and I'm not giving financial advice. But it's moving against the markets.
Yeah.
Last but not least, before we move on to the recruitment piece, so there's a couple of gentlemen online who've been having a Twitter feud surrounding the idea that Martin Luther King Jr. would or would not have supported affirmative action. Basically, there is and this is sort of a teaser for something we'll talk about later as far as racism in America, but there's a conservative Indian gentleman named Dinesh, and it might be D'Souza. Either guys know this
D'Souza,
guy?
I think is what it,
Okay.
I think it's Dinesh D'Souza.
Okay.
D'Souza. I think.
No, it's
Yeah.
Dinesh.
Or
That part
Dinesh.
I'm positive.
Dinesh. Sorry, Dinesh D'Souza. Yeah.
Yeah. He's a conservative gentleman. Basically just the worst. Like you listen to him talk, and he's basically taking this other guy to school, literally
Yeah.
questioning his credentials because of what undergrad and graduate schools he went to. And he's like saying, Cornell is basically the, bottom tier of the Ivy League schools, and
Yeah, I saw that.
and touting all. It's like George W. Bush graduated from Yale.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah,
saying,
I
like where you graduated from. Yes, that is
Yeah,
a basis for good connections and good learning and good education and all that.
But
But
I mean,
as with everything, it's a good basis for something. It doesn't stop you from being like a horrible.
Yeah, it doesn't
asshole.
make it universally true of everyone.
Yeah, no, and you can spend a ton of time reading books and still come away with the absolute wrong conclusions, which he absolutely does in almost everything that he says. So go ahead and check that out. Dive in on either side of that fight. We clipped up a little bit of video on our Twitter feed to help you out with that.
highlight those.
Yep, play his
Yeah, man.
inner monologue for you. All right. So recruitment. Basically, I read a New York Times article today by a Joanna Schroeder. I believe her name is. Her Twitter handle is I propose this. An opinion piece. It's her pin tweet where she talks a little bit about watching your white sons and making sure that they don't fall down the white supremacist rabbit hole. I know Jared and I have talked outside of the show about that, and I'm
The
not sure if
pipeline.
they're changing anything, but yeah,
The fascist pipeline.
yeah, and it's like one of the big reasons that we do this show. The idea is that maybe they fall down, our rabbit hole because it's easy, it's easy and lazy, right? To just be like, what team you're on. You're on team white, I can tell because you're white, and you're on team man because you're a dude, right? And then it's like, so, join our team. We will make you feel like a man. You will have the camaraderie of our group, and then we'll just slowly chip away at your humanity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chip away on
That
your
seems to
caring
be
for anything other
the
than those
formula
things.
there. Yeah. Yeah, that's their formula.
Steven Crowder, whose name I continually
Yeah.
preface
Watch your
by
feet.
saying I'm not going to say his name ever again on this show, talks about the Crowder Army, right? So that's already, some branding that makes you feel, manly. I'm part of an army, and it also makes you feel like you're part of a group, even though you're sitting at home by yourself. So what they're selling, and her article talks a bit about this, is what they're selling is this group of folks who are like you, who can other folks and then hate them,
Yep.
And online has become a real recruitment tool for turning what would be relatively reasonable folks um, into
Nazis.
Nazis.
Into straight up Nazis.
Yeah. I mean, they don't know, either they don't know any Jews or they don't know that they know any Jews. So it's like this is another group that they don't know a lot about, maybe. Um, I know I was taught very little about people of Jewish faith growing up. It just wasn't something that we really talked about or learned about. I mean, I knew about the Holocaust,
right.
and I knew about, I didn't understand, the whys or the whos really, until I went off to college.
Well, we talked about that a little bit, though, how, the reason the college battleground is such a tough battleground is because we're talking about kids that went out and are getting an education and getting exposed to, other people, other cultures, other ideas. The particularly young white men that go down this path, they get preyed upon, are looking for that sense of community. That's what they're selling. They're selling them a community that they're not getting elsewhere. And if they do go to college, if they go, they have a lot less chance, I think, of falling into that type of community because, again, they're going to get that exposure. But this is targeting those people that don't get that don't have that. And so, like you said, they're selling them that sense of purpose, that sense of community, selling them on these ideas. And then it only takes that first step to get them in the door. And then, like you said, they can slowly begin to chip away at their humanity by selling them these bullshit ideas about what's being taken from them, and what's being stolen from them and their country, and that they have a chance to fight for something that means something. And it's like, fuck, dude, what are you talking about? But
yeah. Rather than looking around and going, let's all fight as, and even the American thing where they say, you're a real American, you're a true American, you're what an American looks like. Look at all these folks who are trying to turn your country.
Oh, and when we say real American, who we're talking about. It's like, we do.
Yeah, we do. Unfortunately, we do.
Who you're talking about.
Yeah, it's not the same
not
thing.
Not equally representative.
That I mean when I say it.
No.
Yeah, I mean, even before I went to college, and this was something that I noticed while I was in college, and there, but by the grace of God, go I, right? Is that there are not a lot of groups that are specifically targeted at this demographic. There were a ton of groups on campus for pretty much everybody else. So a lot of my friends, like, I had an Asian friend named Hank, and he would go to his, group that was specifically for Chinese Americans who were Christians. So very targeted, but that was his group.
Yeah.
So he
very
would
specific
go there.
niche group there.
That night. And then there was another, group of Jewish folks that I was friends with. They would all go to, synagogue, and they would all, do Yom Kippur and other events, have Seder and things like that together, away from me. And it's like every group that I would go to, it'd be like, white males come here. I'd be like, hey, what's going on? And they're all like, we hate everybody else. And I'm like, this isn't my group.
Sorry, folks.
I'm gonna just hit the old. I was
having a conversation.
Dusty trail.
I was trying to have a conversation with some dudes a little while ago. And they went down this, like, I was just kind of having a conversation about the, sort of like cancel culture-y things. Just sort of that the energy that puts off, and all that, and they went down this weird way with it, where I was just like, I don't love that people get canceled for this sort of thing. It's kind of weird. I feel like we should be able to talk about this sort of like this back and forth. And they were like, I don't like that the new Little Mermaid is black, and I'm like, whoa, that's not where I was going at all. Can anyone just be normal, please? Anyone with my designations just be normal about this, because that was so weird. That's not at all what I was saying. Oh God, where's my
not
group
where
of
I
folks?
thought that conversation was
going to go. I'm like, where are my group of folks? Come on, guys.
Where is my group? Yeah, I mean, Jared touched on this in a previous episode where, men's rights activists, and I have a lot of issues that are specifically male oriented, related to child rearing and the way that the courts view men, as far as child custody and that kind of thing, or there's any number of issues that are specifically male, right? But if you happen to one of those groups, they're like, hey, how about women being weak and terrible? It's just like,
it's like no,
Dude,
that's not exactly what I was looking for. I'm more looking on
No.
for the like equality message. Does that where is that group?
where is that group of folks? Where is the people
Well,
that
you
are
know,
like,
a lot of,
hey, I want my equal I want to feel equal in child court, and also I don't hate women.
Right. I want
It
women to
exists.
feel equal in child court as well. I want women to feel
Yeah.
equal in every place that I feel equal in. But then also, yeah, the same thing for
I feel
me
like a
and the
lot of
place they do, right? I'm just
I feel like a lot of white males gravitate towards Christianity, to be honest. And this just comes from my own experience of growing up in a Christian home. Christianity is that tends to kind of be a gateway for that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, like I'm not at all saying that churches equal Nazis. I'm just saying that
I'm not a graphic for that.
yeah. I'm just saying that in my experience, I grew up watching a lot of white men gravitate towards Christian groups and Christian, because that was like giving them that sense of community, and that would be a place you could go to get what you're looking for in that sense. Like it's just like if you're a man and you're looking to get with a bunch of other white men and talk about these issues, like Christianity tends to veil it, or the church tends to veil it in a very wholesome, very uplifting and optimistic arena. Like it targets it as as that kind of thing, but it ends up being, unfortunately, because like it's still the same thing. It's no different than that college group that's like, hey, we're here for white dudes, and it's like, oh, but
Also,
you got
you
all the
should
racism
probably
and
hate
stuff.
gays. Yeah.
Yeah.
In
It
addition,
ends
this
up
is a
being-
patriarchal
yeah.
society.
Yeah.
Right.
Don't.
There's so many of those ideals that just
Yeah.
get wrapped into it, and it's like I was just looking for a support group for divorced dudes, and now I'm being, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like you go there looking for support, but now you're getting recruited.
Yeah, I had friends that invited me.
You
So
know?
I had a friend that invited me to a church gathering thing. It was like a teen gathering, whatever. And I went because I was curious about it, and whatever. Like, I decided to try and feel what everybody else feels about it. I was like, everybody else feels this thing about this. I'll go try it out, whatever. And
Yeah.
I went, and it just so happened to be the day that they started talking about homosexuality. And it's not that they didn't talk about it ever, like, usually, apparently. It was just like the day that I showed up, I was like, see, this is why I can't, guys.
Yeah, I bet those two
agree
things were
with this
completely
at all.
unrelated. I bet
Yeah.
you and your long hair showed up, and it was
Yeah,
completely
right.
unrelated that they were
Yeah,
like,
they're-
let's talk a little bit about homosexuality.
Yeah, me. All I did was hit on the youth
Jesus
pastors.
had
What
long
is?
hair.
Where's that come from?
I'll
Yeah,
say
I
this,
kissed them
Jared,
both on the
there's
way in.
nothing-
They seemed to.
Yeah, they seem to be fine with it. I don't know.
With that. That's scriptural. No, I'm not going to get down that road. I'm just saying, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, see, but that's a good example of that, where it's just like, you know what, I am going to try this out. I'm going to, they keep telling me how, again, because I grew up in it, I know all the messages and all the selling points with it, where it's just, again, it has this real wholesome, uplifting, self-improvement quality to it. You think you're going there to get better, to do better, to be better, to become a better version of yourself. And
then
there's
press it
so
on
much
others.
hate. Right, but there's so much hate and bigotry and stuff just completely ingrained in that. So it just ends up going hand in hand, where you can't be both. You can't be part of this uplifting, wholesome, supportive group if you also don't hate gays. Like you have to be on the same side there. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Can
I don't get that.
Can I
Yeah,
do both?
I think this touches on
Can
the
I?
reason that I think this all touches on the reason that we exist as the thing. Speaking of pipelines and
Right.
such, is because all those this is us. This is
Yeah,
white dudes.
we're
Because
liberal white dudes.
I'll talk about, even from personal experience, I almost fell down that same sort of conservative rabbit hole. It would have been very easy for me to, just because I had all the people that we talked about. Actually, most of the people we talked about beefing over turf, I hit their content before I hit anything liberal, even related to it.
Yep.
So I watched their takes on that sort of thing, and it was just very odd, because if they hadn't hit the religion aspect of it so hard, I probably would have just gone that way. I probably would have been the way down that road for me. But because I was also listening to other stuff, that sort of pulled me out of that part of it. I don't know. It was just very interesting to me, because it's very, very easy, and I think it's easier than most people think, to fall down that sort of
It's easy and it's lazy. I mean, it is so
Yeah.
easy to to hate people who are not like you, because I mean, that's another part of, again, why we exist, is because, and I've said this, outside the show, but it is easier for another white male to look at me and hear me say, a black trans woman is still a person and has value than it is to hear a black trans woman tell them that. For whatever reason. You know, it's just when
why.
people look like us and they sound like us and they are like us, you know, without some sort of accent. There's a gentleman, and I wish I knew remembered his name, but basically, he did this whole spiel about the people who went to the Capitol, and he's a redneck, you know, and he's straight out of the South, and he's like, these guys that I played football with, you know, in high school, you idiots, you know, and it's like that speaks more to those folks than I do, you know, because I don't sound like them, right? So, yeah, I mean, there's
I know
something
that someone
to Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I was going to just say, because I know someone has accused us on Twitter before about needing a safe space, or is that why we do this show? I would just like to say, at least from a personal standpoint, doing this show is not about needing a safe space from anything.
No.
It's like what you said. It's because we share those values. We share those ideals, those liberal values. We share them.
We recognize that the world is a scary and terrible place for a lot of folks who aren't us. That's the whole idea, is that people like us, though, will hear us better than they'll hear you when we say, you know, when we center and uplift and amplify your voice through us. Sound like I'm channeling Jesus or something. Speaking of that, by the way, when you were talking, I was realizing they don't hit hard enough in that he was an Arab Jew. Like, I feel like
they really don't.
They should hit that more in the message. Like, you know, what he actually probably looked like, what his followers probably looked like, you know.
Right.
And people find that so, in America, Christians find that so offensive.
Yeah.
To
the reality of who Christ would have been. Yeah.
Right. And it's like, why?
Yeah, why is it offensive to say that Jesus might have had brown skin?
Well, he definitely did.
Because he definitely did.
Because it conflicts with their bigotry, their hate. I mean,
yeah.
I've said this before.
It's hard to be a
outside
racist,
of this show.
But...
Yeah. Well, I've said this before outside of the show. You know, I mean, a lot of Christians take. You know, I grew up, of course, reading the Bible. A lot of Christians take the Bible and highlight it with a Sharpie marker. They just kind of pick and choose what they want to believe, where they want to base those beliefs on, and where they want that to come from. And it's gonna originate from that hate, that bigotry, I don't care if it's wrapped in some bullshit, you know, salvation message or about love or about whatever they think it's about. The reality is when they purposefully avoid those kinds of facts and are offended by those types of truths, it just speaks to their hate, and their bigotry is really what fuels them. And what they find in their Christian communities is not God, it's not their spirituality. They find a community of other people who think the same way they do.
Yeah, they're just finding another community of bigots and ignorance. And it's like, if you are leading with your faith for your hate and your anger and your bigotry, you're doing the New Testament wrong. I feel like we've said that before on the show too, but it's basically that's true. You know, Jesus was the OG hippie. He was turn the other cheek. He was don't have riches. He was you know.
But so this isn't. I think I don't look at liberal white dudes as a safe space for white guys. I look at it as a way for people like us, guys like us, who share those values and have an opinion on them. We want to share them so that maybe other white dudes, like you said, and not just white dudes. The show's for everybody. But part of the idea is that, like you said, it's kind of sad that it has to be that way, but there are a lot of people out there that can only hear these types of, you know, truths, or even give an ear to them if it's coming from a source that they're gonna identify with, a source that they're not gonna conflict with right off the bat. Which is weird, but it, like you said, I don't get that either, really.
I don't know where it comes from, but I get what you mean. Yeah,
I mean, we did a whole episode on masculinity, and there's again, there were a lot of examples this week of how it just kind of drives from there. You know, wanting to be a man and wanting to feel like a man, and guns and abusing women, I guess.
Yeah, I guess that's part of it.
You know, I mean, our society says that's what makes you a man. You know, watch movies and whatever. And so as an alternative to that, you can have empathy for other people and be a thinking person.
Yeah. Because for me, the reason that this, that I do this is because I know that I almost fell down that rabbit hole as well. You know, that sort of easy, like that arc is easy to follow. And I think that if you can just provide one thing where it's just not that, right? So because I mean, for as lefty as me and AJ may be, I think the center perspective um, is important because it's part of that sort of grade of our own, you know. Um, because this is like the group, you know, how like there's like that Asian Christian group, Chinese American Christian group. We're just, you know, liberal white dudes. That modifier at the beginning really does matter for some reason. Yeah. I don't know why, but it does.
I'm hoping that later this year we can hit some college campuses and, you know, be like, we think everybody has value. Change my mind.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
We should do spoof Stephen Crowder content.
Absolutely.
That would be funny.
Yeah, and even run against, you know, some of Charlie Kirk stuff, because that's where he's active. Not to mention his name again on this show. Keep name dropping these garbage individuals, but basically, but yeah, you know, just show up and be like, hey, guess what? We're white dudes, but you don't have to hate those folks over there, and you don't have to hate these folks over there. We're not here counter protesting. That'll be the most surprising thing about our presence.
Exactly.
Yeah, we can stand here and be totally comfortable saying Black Lives Matter. Because we feel that way. It's okay for you to feel that way too. Dude who looks like me.
So I mean, I guess I would say to comments like that about what people think this show is about. This show is about being an ally. That's what it's about in a way. Like, we're liberal white dudes. We share these values with other liberals. And I don't even necessarily love the label of liberal. It's just, it's important to have that distinction because we need people to know, because we're white dudes, we're not on that side. Like, I acknowledge that I'm white. I acknowledge the privilege that I have of being a white male in this country. Thankfully, though I was raised very conservative and very religious, I found my way to a path where I believe values all humans and values everyone, and sees the systematic racism built in our society, and sees the issues facing the marginalized communities in America, and we have an opinion about it, and we share it with other people that may not happen to be white or dudes, but the opinion is the same. The values are the same.
One of the best privilege arguments, other than the video where everybody takes a step forward, you know, based on their life experience. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but that one's
like
that one gives a really good visualization. But the other best one that I've ever heard was from Louis C.K. and, you know, take the good with the bad with that guy, I guess. But he was basically talking about, if I was given the option, I'd re-up for this. I would re-up for white and male. You know, if you're going to go through life again and they gave you the option to be something else, he's like, I would re-up for this. And I was like, if there was no privilege, if it wasn't inherently better for some reason societally, right? If you didn't have it easier, if this wasn't, you know, easy mode, right? Like you're at the beginning of your video game, right? You know what I mean?
Right,
then you wouldn't. So, you know, that to me was just like a good illustration of the privilege that we get just being born where and who we are.
So I get confused by people that attack us for that, because I'm like, we acknowledge our privilege. We acknowledge the fact that we're white guys. That's the point. The point is that we're part of that same community, and we want to be an ally to other communities, and that's why we're here.
I think maybe that's the part that people miss. I think the part that people are looking for is I think they see the white dudes and they see us being like, hey, if you're also a white dude and you feel like you don't really have a group of folks, come talk to us, because we're liberal white dudes. We have these views about people, and you feel like maybe there aren't, because like you said, where it's like, whoa, this isn't my group. Not my stuff. That's the thing, is that it's really easy to find those types of people who are like really like racist or whatever, and it's harder to find, especially I've found people that aren't, and you know, hitting that audience is important. People who need their group but also don't want to be racist.
And I mentioned that before too. When you end up in a group that's just full of whatever, just full of dudes or just full of white people, you know, there are people in that group who will assume that you are those things. Assume you are sexist. Assume you are racist, and just start.
And I don't necessarily have a problem with that, because I think there's such a storied history of terrible white dudes that it's not that it's invalid. It's very valid. I'm okay with that. I just want, and I know you are too. I do.
I meant when like if you're just white dudes hanging out, like let's say at a bar, and all of a sudden it is just white dudes, the other white dudes will
Yeah.
assume you're racist.
Yes, that's yeah. That's what
They'll
I mean.
start
They
saying
have
racist
that. Like,
stuff as
yeah,
though you'll just like be
Yeah,
cool
just
with it.
agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
And we travel in that, like the guy who decided to just, I don't like the new Little Mermaid is black.
Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
He
like,
makes the
what are
assumption
you
about
even
you.
talking about? It's not how I feel about that at all. Why would you assume that's how I feel about that? What an absurd thing to assume.
He's like, look in the mirror, man. Of course
Yeah.
you feel that way.
Of course you feel that
That's
way. You're a
our
white dude.
storied
I'm like, hold
history.
on.
Yeah.
So I guess that's my
Please.
hope for any of our viewers is that they see us that way. See us that way. That this isn't a show just for white guys. It's not a show just for liberals. It's a show where we're putting out our ideas and opinions. It's political commentary from this perspective.
Yep.
And it's a shared perspective. And the fact that we're white and dudes shouldn't change that.
Yeah. Need not be white nor dudes. I think we say that somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's kind of important,
And it's a good, I like that. Need not be
I'm
white
a
nor dude.
little more aggressive than either AJ or Jared, I think, in this respect, in that, as far as the far left is concerned, they've told us our voice doesn't matter. They are constantly trying to push us down the other rabbit hole. They spend a lot of time belittling, berating, and telling white males that they don't belong as part of the left.
Yeah, I do.
We've
know
had that online
exists,
since we started.
The virtue testing is.
Yeah, it's like you're virtue signaling. Oh, you're going to be my white savior, or oh, you're going to be my white knight, or oh, and it's like, what is the point of what you're saying? You want me to know that I'm privileged? I already know that. You want me to not look down on you and pity you? I don't. You want me to hate you for some reason? What?
Yeah, why?
The
whites.
You're ruining this for you.
The white savior
not
thing.
For me, obviously, it's easy for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Great reply to that, I think, where someone did comment something about the fact that we're liberal white dudes, and I think our reply was that
I'm sorry, we're for the same things that you are. I know that you hate that.
I think you said something like, I know this is the last thing you wanted.
Yes, there you
go. Is for white guys to join your side.
Yeah.
I acknowledge there's a small, or maybe not so small, but there certainly is a sect of the far left that hate people like us for what we're doing.
Sure.
I just don't subscribe to that. I'm like, fine. I find that to be just as extreme and and very unproductive as the far right.
Yeah.
So, in that regard, I stick to the truths that I know about us and I know about our show and I know about why we're here. And to anybody that says that we're here for any other reasons like that or any of that virtue signaling, virtue testing, it's like, you know what? That's for the birds, man. I'm not even going to acknowledge that shit because that's not where I'm coming from. And I know that.
Yeah.
And it's also not a white savior thing. The thing that always concerned me about that is that we're not doing this because we feel like we can save the minorities or like we want to be the hero of the country or any of that. We're doing this just because we know that there are people who will move to our side if they hear what we have to say.
Yeah.
They're just people that will be like on the fence and they'll hear what we have to say and they're like,
I certainly hope that.
Yeah, exactly. That's the hope. That's what we're doing it for. We're not. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Sorry, we hope that's the case.
There you go.
Yeah, maybe not guaranteed, but still. But that's the reason we're doing it. Is because maybe there's people out there like that. Not because we feel like we can save the country with our, heroism. Like that's not.
We expect dozens of people in Vegas this summer for the Dozens LWD March.
Yeah. Dozens
now
LWD
that
March.
I do expect. I'm optimistic about the Dozens LWD March. That's going to be no problem. That we can awesome. Get together.
I mean, Biden just came out and said that he expects everyone who wants to be vaccinated to be vaccinated by spring of this year. Mm-hmm. It sounds aggressive and fairy tale and nonsense, but I'm all for it.
I think he confirmed a 200 million dose purchase today. So it's a lot of doses.
It is.
Down for that.
And that
seems like a lot. Yeah.
It's without Johnson & Johnson's one shot being in the mix yet. They're expecting that in February. So, is it possible? Sure. Is it? I mean, I don't have any optimism. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
maybe I heard some.
I mean, I'm optimistic about it. We have to be. We have no choice. I mean, look what we just came out of with the Trump administration. So, got my fingers crossed. Still staying inside, still wearing my mask. I got my fingers crossed though.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen.
I imagine I'll probably still end up doing that.
Wearing a mask and staying inside.
Yeah, wearing a mask, and I mean not staying inside as much part, but very much so the wearing mask thing, even post vaccination.
Staying inside is already my
people
bit
around here, but
yeah,
exactly.
I used to go out dressed as the Dread Pirate Roberts anyway. So I don't know why I would stop doing that. It covers everything except for your mouth.
Yeah, which is just everything except for your mouth.
Yeah. I'm just going to continue doing that.
I thought it was great.
Like, sir, you have to wear a mask. Like... I am.
But I'm cautiously optimistic, yeah.
All right. So I am going to give 0 out of 5 fakes for recruiting Nazis online.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Not a fan of that.
Ditto. 0. None of that for me.
0 across the board for those douchebags.
I do want
0 to 15 for Nazis, turns out.
Yeah. That may be our lowest score yet. I do want to give a quick apology to AOC.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
We were not able to fit her in on this. Since we were coming from a mostly liberal white dude perspective for this one, you know, maybe not the best.
Surprised she even showed up in the waiting room, to be honest.
It is odd that she's still there, but
she's there. I feel bad.
Yeah.
She just dropped off.
You just said you weren't going to get her on. I get that.
Yeah.
She was so close. She was so close. We just,
thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Feel free to subscribe to us here on YouTube. Go over there to Facebook and like us, and then definitely follow us on Twitter. We are here live every 6 p.m. Pacific time, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Good night, everybody.